to come back, to have to come back from that and not have a job.
Right.
You're listening to the Recycled Minds podcast. The Recycled Minds
Podcast.
Recycled
Improv,
Minds.
comedy, and life. Broadcasting from Boise, Idaho, USA.
Boise! Because the way that touring works is you get paid for the time that you are on the road. So if I don't have a tour lined up, as soon as that tour's done, I don't have an income. So I either have to be making enough on the road to kind of get me through however long it's going to take me to get another tour, or I have to have something lined up right when I get back.
You've been listening to an interview with Jake Van Paepeghem from the Interstate Band. I'm sitting in with him with studio today as we are talking about his time on tour with Kris Allen. If you aren't following Jake VP on Twitter yet, now is your chance. Jake's handle is @JakeVP. Pretty simple. I am Sean Hancock, and you can find me on Twitter @HancockSean. Of course, this is the Recycled Minds podcast, and you can find us as well on Twitter or on Facebook, and also on YouTube at the Recycled Minds. On Twitter, we are Recycled Minds 1. Here's more with Jake VP.
So in order to pay for being away from home, in order to pay for being at home, I have to be away from home.
Right.
It's really backwards. And so Workwise, they were incredible about it, and I couldn't have asked for a better situation. I mean, and my bandmates as well were saying, I had taken a lot of time off of playing consistently in the capacity that I used to. So for them, it was like our bass player Jay said, he's like, I think you need to do this because you need to be playing. And anything that's going to make you better as a player makes Interstate better as a team and as a band. And the same with Kyle, our vocalist and keyboard player. He's like, if this is something that you feel is going to be good for you as a musician, then this is something you need to go do. I mean, they were bummed that we were going to be missing out on some writing opportunities and some recording opportunities that we had kind of gotten started on. But, at the same time, we were all getting pretty busy. Kyle just graduated with a master's degree yesterday from Boise State and kind of had to finish a lot of that stuff up. And I actually, unfortunately, missed his senior recital, which was a big bummer, or his master's recital, which was a big bummer. But they understood, and, he was doing something that he needed to do for himself, and I needed to do for myself. And I feel like now that I have come back, I feel like my brain is kind of back into very much a spot where I can play music a little bit more fluidly. Whereas the time that I took off kind of took some of that away, which helped in some areas and didn't in others, because I was able to take a step back from just being a guitar player. But it is a big risk. I mean, because you just never know. You never know what you're coming back to when you leave sometimes. With the tour, you never know, relationship-wise, the people friends that you have and family, you never know what's going to happen, for better or for worse. And I definitely had both ends of that spectrum when I've left and come back. So, but I think I came back more inspired than I have ever been in a lot of different ways, as a guitar player and as a songwriter and as somebody who has to deal with the music industry and music business for a long time, hopefully. I was very inspired.
What I wouldn't do now, 'cause I'm doing much better than you think. Loving on me, I'll always be, 'cause people don't change, least of all me. You can't stop me now. You can't stop me now.
Jake, what would you say would be one of the biggest takeaways that you have coming back from tour? Something that you learned that is really resonating in you still today, and something that you can apply now with yourself and with Interstate.
Yeah, I called Kyle as soon as the tour was over. I called him from an airport, and he was. We were just talking about how Kris was generally, because when, like I said, I consider Kris a legitimate celebrity, right? Which I am very fascinated by. I'm super fascinated by the idea of celebrity and how people handle this quote celebrity, right? And it was really cool to watch Kris go through that and actually, you know, talk to his family, talk to his parents and his wife about kind of how they have dealt with it and how they go about it. And his wife was incredibly supportive. But when we were talking about the fear of success, you know, that was something that went through her mind when he started American Idol. It was like, I really want him to do this, and I know that he can win, but I'm scared of what will happen if he does, because I don't know what that means, you know, because celebrity is such a scary thing. But they have done an incredible job of maintaining a really cool relationship.
You're listening to the Recycled Minds podcast. The Recycled Minds
Podcast.
Recycled
Improv,
Minds.
comedy, and life. RecycledMindsImprov.com.
RecycledMindsImprov.com.
Broadcasting from Boise, Idaho, USA. We are in studio with Jake Van Paepeghem.
So that was something that was big, and his attitude towards Kris's attitude towards, I'm going to do everything that I can do. Anything that I can feasibly get done in the music industry, then I will do it. And it was, if that meant a show of 15,000 people, awesome. If that meant a show of 20 people, he was gonna play them the exact same way, and he played them the exact same way. He never walked off stage. He never walked off stage from a small crowd and said, that wasn't awesome because the crowd was small. If the crowd wasn't good, if the crowd wasn't into it and wasn't digging it, then that's what was wrong. It had nothing to do with the number of people, and it was always about how did we play and what were the good things. And he always started something positive, and it was never. I never felt like the improvements that needed to be made were negatives. So that was cool, and he didn't really complain. His voice was pretty spot on, and he gives. I mean, he's singing hard all night. He's got a pretty powerful voice, and to have him go through whatever it was, 24 shows or 29 shows, I can't remember how many it was, and not complain one time. I mean, it didn't even start to audibly affect him until the last 2 shows, and he just kept pushing through it and didn't complain a single time. And that was just from being around vocalists my entire life. My parents, my mom is a vocalist, and my dad is a choir director. That, you know, vocalists can have a tendency to be a little whiny. Not that my mom's whiny. My mom's listening. Happy Mother's Day, by the way. So he just had a really cool, positive, go get him attitude.
I watched a video that you had posted on Twitter where Kris was addressing a crowd and did this acoustic set, as your tour was acoustic, and he sang, and every person that was on stage with you basically had a moment where they took an opportunity to sing or perform their instrument, and it was really cool. Like, Kris literally stepped back and made room for that next person to perform, and it seems like he's like, it sounds like you're saying, and it also watching the video, seems like he's a selfless performer.
Definitely, and he definitely knew what everyone's strengths were, and was easily honed in on it, and really wanted us to be able to do that. I don't think it was even to his benefit. I think it's just because he knew that that's just kind of what we do, and that's. And there was an instance in the set there was room for that every night. There was a song that we did where everybody got their own solo, and I actually got plenty of solos throughout the night, which was awesome. I mean, part of that was the way that it was set up before I walked in, but he wanted Andrew to have his moment and to be able to show what he does, and he wanted to make sure that Kris, the other Kris, we called him Torres, who was playing percussion, make sure he got his little moment. And then at the end of the tour, we all did Bob Dylan's "Don't Think Twice," and we all took a verse and got to sing a verse, and that was incredibly special.
Yeah,
for all of us.
I literally got goosebumps watching the video. It was great. It was really good. So what's new on the horizon for you and for Interstate? I know you're you're going to be heading to go watch Kyle in an opera.
Yeah, Kyle's singing in an opera tonight right down the road at the Egyptian.
What's the name of the show?
The show is Susanna.
Oh, okay.
I believe it's Floyd's Susanna. It's kind of like a mid-century thing. It sounds pretty awesome. I'm excited. So he's kind of finishing that. Him and his fiance get married in July. So and our bass player is having a daughter in August. So we've got there's a lot of life stuff happening for Interstate, but Interstate is we're a little over halfway through a record that we are really excited about, and that has been a really cool process to be able to take at our own pace. And we kind of have a timeline to have that done by fully mastered and everything by next January, and to make our annual event, which is the Broken Resolutions Ball, kind of our CD release for that. We kind of want to have all the songs done by about August, and actually tracked, and then we want to spend some time with it and mix it. So that's kind of what's next. I just want to be able to continue to play as much as I can and keep the inspiration flowing from coming off the road with Kris. So,
Do you feel refreshed?
That is the voice of my lovely wife, Colleen, who always tends to watch out for the betterment of artists.
Refreshed? I do, yeah, definitely. It was good to leave. It was good to just get out of Boise for a while, and kind of remember that there's a whole other country that I live in, and to be able to take us, to just get a break from kind of the 9-to-5 thing, and remember that I'm still a musician that can do that night in and night out, So it was good. It was the perfect amount of time to want to be back home. I think one of the common questions is what did you miss the most when you were out? And it was hands down my dog. For sure it was my dog. So my dog stayed with my parents, and they would send me pictures and stuff. And it was and everybody else, Andrew, the keyboard player, actually has a son. His name is Simon. And he would show us pictures of him that his wife would send him, and I would respond with pictures of my dog. Which is not always an even trade, but I felt like it was.
Did you Skype with your dog?
I didn't Skype with my dog. I should have. The only other thing that I can think of that was relevant to the question about things that I took away was, and this is I could go on for an hour about this, but essentially that because it was an acoustic tour and I'm so primarily an electric guitar player, and I have all these toys these pedals and amps, and there are so many different things that you can mess with that it sometimes can start to take away from actually playing the guitar. And so to jump onto an acoustic tour where all I have is my guitar plugged into a sound system, basically. I had one or two pedals that we did for some specific things, but the sound comes from my fingers, and that's really the only factor. The guitar is the guitar. It's going to be the same guitar every night. And so I have to be effective at being dynamic and being, making this range of sounds with my fingers. So it kind of, the way I liked to put it was it defined the box that I had to think in at the time. And I'm not really good at thinking outside of the box. I'm better at defining a specific box and then doing something within a certain parameter. So then to be able to do that and kind of leave a bunch of stuff behind and a lot of this noise that ends up cluttering up what's going to be actual technique and what's going to be being a guitar player, it was really good to put that away for a while, focus just on my fingers and what I was playing and how I was playing it, and then come back to my pedal board and my electric guitar and be able to make some different noises that were I feel like a lot more fluid of a guitar player because of that, because it was just an acoustic guitar and me for a while. So I feel like coming back, I just want to be in a studio all day long, and I feel like that applies to a lot of different things. For Heath to be doing improv comedy, how does that help his stand-up show? How does that help him to be able to adapt to a situation or come up with something new on the spot when maybe something isn't landing, or I really like the formatting somebody into something that maybe isn't within their comfort zone, like we talked about, and seeing what they come up with.
Well, Jake,